Now, okay, we are recording. This is Animal on Control. Welcome to the voice chat. Today, we have Ban All Dogs, or BAD for short. Mr. BAD, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. What's up?
Yeah, it's great to have you. I know we've spoken many times in chat, but we've never actually voice chatted with each other. So I'm really glad you joined. You are a content creator, and I very much enjoy your content. It's I find much of it very humorous.
Juvenile, right? But I don't know. You got to add some kind of humor
That's
into it.
right. You always got to find the humor in it. So I know, I've watched most of your content, probably most folks have, but I was wondering, just tell us, me, whoever, a little bit about yourself and how you got into the space, what sort of motivated you to speak out about this four-legged plague, this mud apocalypse, or whatever you want to call it.
Father, right? I have a son.
Okay.
Going back a little farther, growing up as a kid, the dogs were always around me, not by choice. It seems like if you're a parent these days, like you have to get dogs to go with your kids.
Yep.
So that was so I always thought it was just something to tolerate. Like, oh, it's normal. This is normal, being around disgusting things. um, really set me over though. I always knew they were gross. Um, I don't know. I'd say about 2 years ago, when the dog ladies moved in next door, uh, like I met them. I did the nice neighborly thing. I hung out with them in their little dog pit back there. I figured it was nice to do, right? But of course, all the dogs are running around, and like, I don't know, a couple of days later, I was like, oh, there's the dogs. Let me go say hi. And I'll admit, I did a bad thing. I stuck my finger to the fence, tried to pet it, and it bit me. And I was like, oh, well, fuck this.
Jeez.
Oh, sorry for cussing, by the way.
Yeah, I've
Um,
seen, from watching your videos, it looks like you can see there's a clear line between your yard and theirs because the chain link fence in between. And your yard looks well kept. I mean, you have grass growing back there, but on their side, there's literally not one blade of grass. It's the whole yard is just a piss and shit soaked
yeah,
mud
it
puddle.
really is.
I
It's
mean,
so bad
literally,
this
it's
summer, too.
oh, okay, because I'm thinking, because this is an angle of this that doesn't get covered enough. So you had a lot of barking at first, but it seems like that's improved. How's that going?
It's actually 90% better. She
Okay.
put this like black tarp thing on the fence, right? So the dogs can't see out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So of course there's nothing for them to see to bark at, you know.
Okay.
So for
Okay.
the most part it's good. The smell is still lingering in the air
Uh,
all the time. I
what's
don't know.
the, sorry, go ahead. I'm talking
I
over you.
Yeah, I think it's someone told me that well they put that thing on the fence so they can just get away with anything now and not be called out on it.
Yeah, well, because
I kind of believe that. But
yeah, it can't.
real quick too, another thing why I hate dogs, what pushed me over the edge was my son's uncle on the mom's side. He's had a dog for a long time, and then I get this call out of nowhere saying, "Don't be mad, don't be mad." I'm like, "Oh, great, what happened?" And my kid got nipped in the face, had to get stitches and all
Oh,
that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's it. I'm
ouch.
done.
What
I'm done with these dogs.
what
And then
kind of,
my son's mom got a dog after that. They used to have a cat, but then she gets a dog after that happens. And it just blows my mind. I don't get it.
yeah, now it sounds like, yeah, we have a dog problem. What's a solution to a dog problem? Well, it's a solution to
Uh,
any problem. It's like more dogs, right?
yeah, whatever goes into their illogical brain. I don't know. Makes no
Yeah.
sense.
Well, dog is the answer to every problem, even dog problems. So you
Mhm.
have this, how many dogs do they have next door?
Four big ones.
Four big ones. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
The lab mixes.
Yeah, well, of course, the
Yeah.
quote, the lab mix. Although I've seen them, they don't look like pit bulls or bully breeds. Although maybe one or two of them do. You might have some low content pit mixes over there. But the
Yeah, like there's all aggressive as a mother though.
yeah, well, they're just, I mean, in a way, I don't blame them. I mean, not that I want to take the dog side. I mean, there's no excuse for this. And this is one reason, like what you have going on next door is a reason that we have these zoning rules that, eliminate, say, farm animals in communities. It's why you can't have a backyard full of goats, sheep, pigs in most neighborhoods because it creates those sort of squalid conditions. But, again, it's another doggy double standard. It's another big loophole. It's like, yeah, if you want to, essentially turn your backyard into a high density feedlot with dogs, it's okay. Because anything you do with a dog is okay, right?
Yeah, and the movies, TV, all this, social media, praising dogs. Everyone feels like they have to get them. I mean, if it
Absolutely.
were like that for goats, everyone would have goats in the yard probably. They just sheeple following
Yeah.
what is popular, and apparently having dogs is very popular.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it's promoted very heavily. So you got
Yeah.
the four dogs next door. What
Mhm.
state are you in? If you don't mind.
Iowa.
Oh, you're in Iowa. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a cold winter. So this time of year, it's the temperature sort of keeps the stench down, like the bacteria is not really cranking up there.
Yeah, it just snowed today.
Okay. Well, that's
So
sort of,
temporarily covers it all up.
yeah, that
But
helps. But yeah, once it warms up, probably hits like April, May, I'm sure it gets pretty
horrible.
stinky.
We can't even play in the backyard, We can't.
Uh I wonder,
It's impossible.
if you're help, but again, it goes back to why we have these zoning rules is to, prevent that kind of thing because we don't want to create these squalid conditions in these neighborhoods. But yet, dog people get that loophole. Yeah, that's terrible. And again, that's an aspect of this that doesn't get enough airtime because it's nasty. It's horrible what they do like this.
It can't be accepted, right? I mean, if I haven't, to be honest, complained to the city or anything yet, which I probably should. But if some health inspector went over there, they'd probably be like, "Yeah, you have to do something about this."
Well,
But I mean, I
have you
wouldn't be surprised if they didn't,
yeah, well, I mean,
say
have
that
you
to them.
thought about that? Because it's the kind of thing they shouldn't be allowed to get away with this.
I have thought about it a lot,
Yeah.
but it's just the confrontation thing. Once I do that, it's past the point of no return. Now you know, um, there's just going to be this level of uh, angst and unnecessary snarks, at each other. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's going to turn into an escalating conflict.
yeah, like, yeah.
I
What are
mean,
those
I
neighbors
respect that.
back
You
in the
don't
old
know,
day?
and often, dog people often escalate too. They're like, "Oh, you don't like this? Well, I'm going to make it worse."
Yeah, like this level of resentment is going to just go up. You know, I take more of the passive aggressive way. I mean, they know I'm not a fan of them, and I've told her once. I told like her brother comes over a lot to pick up the dog, like they're going on a play date or something, because apparently he can't have dogs at his place. That's why his dog is staying over there.
Uh,
So anytime I see him, it's him picking up his dog. And when they were walking to the truck, I was on my front porch, and relieved itself on my front yard. And I'm like, "Oh, nice, man." And he's like, "Oh, I tried to make him stop it." And I was like, "No, you didn't." He's
yeah,
like, "Well,
well,
you don't have to be rude about it." I'm like, being rude about it, what I do.
you got a nice brown patch, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the neighborhood dogs. There's this one spot in my yard right next to the sidewalk. It seems like everyone goes to, because they've marked their territory there. scent or whatever.
I think,
And I
yeah, they're,
even laid down this stuff, this keep dogs and cats away, rabbits away, but that doesn't work because as soon as it rains or something, it just washes away. I've I haven't seen it work, so
jeez.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, well, you know, thing is, it's like, I mean, I guess you got to, going back to, you know, reporting them. Um, you know, I it depends, you know, you're right. You're going to wind up in endlessly escalating conflict. They won't do anything. They may make it
if
worse. At least they solve the barking, because to me, like, barking really is the worst because you can't escape it. It's just, and you even hear it when they're not barking. I even do now sometimes. It's like, what is that? You know, you hear a squeak or a click or something. Like, is that a dog? Is that a dog? Is that a dog barking?
yeah, even with the like a nice pair of noise canceling headphones, I have this pair of Bose headphones that are really nice. I can't hear anything when I
Yeah,
have them on, but then I'll hear it's like, yep, back is you can still
there it
hear
is.
dogs even through the walls and noise canceling headphones. It's the one thing that you can hear that doesn't cancel that noise out. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. What about, is there a neighbor on the other side? What do they think?
Well, I'm on the corner, but yeah, there's only one non-dog person in this whole area in
Oh,
my neighborhood.
jeez.
Yeah, and I like to vent to him every once in a while. He vents back, because everyone else around us has dogs, multiple dogs,
Jeez.
and but at the same time, I see him like the next day he's petting the neighbor's dog and he's getting all ooey gooey with it, and I'm like, oh, for sake, So he
Well,
says he
that's,
can smell the yard too. He's across the street. He's
oh,
one house. My house separates, and the street separates them from the so-called dog ladies, and he can even smell it.
oh, God. That's
That's
awful.
bad.
That's so bad. But you know, but it's not uncommon. You know, plenty of people put up with that. It's because, yeah, they just create. And you've got these four large animals just pissing and shitting all the time in this small patch of dirt, basically. So it's just this sludge, this toxic sludge of dog waste that just sits there. Um,
Really seeping into my yard too, like the
oh
plague.
God.
And another funny thing is, I noticed she hired a couple guys. I think they have a business around here called like Poop Pals or something.
Jeez.
And she hired him to come over to clean the yard, which I only seen him do it a couple times. But now she's at that point where she hires someone to do it. And I watched him for a second, and they're in their regular clothes, walking around in it, no mask, nothing. I'd be in a hazmat suit. First of all, I wouldn't do it, but if I was forced to, I'd be,
Whoa, wait,
you
I
know,
missed that. They were in hazmat suits, or
no, no, I
oh,
would
okay.
be though, but
Oh
they
yeah,
weren't. They were
yeah.
just like in their hoodies and jeans and walking around it. It's like, oh my God, they had shovels just shoveling it up in the
Oh.
buckets. And it's like, oh my
But it's
God.
not as if they're just
Because
picking. They're not just picking poo. I mean, that whole patch is just one big patch of dog sewage sludge. Essentially, I mean, that's what it looks like to me.
yeah, they're just scooping up with shovels, putting in the buckets.
Ugh.
I mean, there's not one particular piece of excrement they could pick up. It's
Right.
just pretty much digging the whole top layer off of
Yeah.
the whole entire yard.
Scrape. But even if they do so, whether it's going to keep scraping it off until what they get down to bedrock, or because
Take themselves to China eventually.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the dogs are just going to keep pissing and shitting all over everything. You know, it's not like they're going in the toilet and they can just sort of flush it away. It's like, no, they're just going to keep befouling that piece of dirt forever. We could call the EPA. Maybe they could, declare it a Superfund site. Oh, hold on a second. We got Jones is here. What's up, Jones?
Nothing much.
Yeah, we
Got
were
a
just
day.
talking.
So, what's
Yeah,
up?
that's why I'm late.
B.A.D and I were talking about the super fun site he has next door. It's the dogs. They befouled the land to the point where it's like it's just a urine and shit soaked disaster all the way down probably to the core of the earth. You know, maybe a volcano will erupt there.
My God,
Yeah.
they'll open up some kind of sinkhole. You know,
It's
it'll,
like
it'll
it's
swallow.
like
I mean, they might
it'll
just make it
explode. There'll be like a huge
patient.
volcano eruption of dog waste. We'll just like shower your city in
Yeah,
excrement.
it'll aerosolize
And
before,
maybe, then maybe they'll do something about it. The
Yeah, maybe
city.
that. Yeah, when it causes like a national disaster.
I
Yeah, I'm
mean, if
thinking
anything,
like,
just
yeah,
break
I
the
mean,
fence.
yeah, I respect it. You know, you don't want to create it endlessly, spiraling, conflict with them. I know we were talking on the text chat the other day, somebody, maybe it's not an option for you, but what could somebody do in a situation like that? Because I'm thinking they own the home, right? They're owners
They do.
still
That
there.
gives them carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want to do, I guess.
Well, I don't know, because if they're owners and they have a mortgage,
Yeah.
um, the the lender has an interest in maintenance of the collateral, and if they're devaluing the property with what they're doing, and I'm sure like the dogs, are the dogs go inside it all, or are they outside all the time?
Oh, they go inside. They got this bug screen on their back door, but they keep the door open, right? So these dogs can just walk in and out whenever they want.
Yeah, I'm sure the inside of that house is trashed. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
trashed. But the lender has an interest in, maintaining that, the value of that collateral, that capital. So maybe, a little
Oh,
love
yeah.
note to the lender might be in order. I don't know, because I've heard, I don't know if this ever happened with dogs, but it's not unheard of for a lender to recall a loan. If they feel that, for a lot of it could be like macroeconomic conditions, or again, devaluing of the collateral. Because it's like, okay, if they have, I don't know, $150,000 mortgage. I don't know what homes are worth in your neighborhood, but I just pulled that out of my ass, right? So on what was a $200,000 house, but if they've just destroyed the property and now it's worth 90, they can say it's
Yeah.
like they could choose to recall that loan and essentially, foreclose on them before they do any more damage. That's pretty unusual. It's a long shot, but
Well, if it's classified info,
yeah,
all that, I
I mean,
guess.
anytime you're dealing with anything dog related, everything's a long shot, but it's kitchen sink approach. You just throw everything against the wall and to see what sticks, right? So, yeah, maybe some will come out of it. Probably not, but it might. Who knows? Because if someone from the bank comes out and says, okay, you're devaluing this collateral, you need to, fix this or clean this up, it might make them do something. But, or, anonymous calls to the health department. It's always good.
True.
Can't
It's
hurt.
funny too. On the other side of our house, there's like a gate part. Not a full length fence like on my side.
Hmm.
And she put like this blue tarp that you like cover boats up with or something, and that's torn to shreds because she hung it on her side, you know. So it's torn to shreds because of the dogs. That black thing that she put on the fence is on my side, and of course it's pristine.
Yeah.
you know. And her bug uh, curtain thing that she has on her door, so the dog's going in and out, that's ripped to shit too. So these things just destroy everything they touch.
Jeez.
It's ridiculous.
It's awful.
So I don't think I'm the only one giving them the stink eye and being passive aggressive
Yeah, well,
because
they know the dogs are a problem. How are they, like, do they ever behave dangerously? Have they ever bit anybody or chased anybody or anything like that?
They're mostly all bark, no bite. I mean, they'll bark at anything that moves. They got out once and ran up on my porch. They didn't do anything. They just ran up. And I was like, "Oh my God, get!" And they turned around, ran away.
It's funny, they
But
get out and they go right to your place and thinking, oh,
yeah,
it's so nice and clean.
yeah. I don't know. It's probably because I was standing there like, "Food? That guy got food? Food? You get food?" And I'm like, "No, get the hell away." Oh, okay, bye.
You got any tasty toddlers to feed us? Come on, be a pal.
Yeah. Jesus.
Just had to build it like the Supermax to, really, they'll destroy anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's what they do best.
But it's a kind of thing where, oh, that's another question I had too. So you have 4 dogs residing there. Do you know, what does your township allow in terms of number of dogs in the home? I mean, most places it's 3 or 4, so they're probably not over, but
I looked it up. It's 4.
it's 4. Yeah, so they're right at the
Yeah.
max. Yeah, they know. I think they have a pretty good idea of what they can get away with.
One time they had 5 because one was about to die. So of course they had to get another one before it died. So
Of course,
for
yeah.
a few months there, they had 5. Yeah.
So if probably,
How
if
many
the limit
dogs
were
do you
if the
need?
limit were 20, they'd probably have 20 back there.
Oh, they also have cats too. I've seen cats in their windows. It's like, Jesus.
Well, yeah, you wonder too. It's like, because the cats. I mean, a cat is like nothing compared to a dog, but too, it's like, yeah, the inside of that house, I'm sure it's just a nightmare. I'm sure, like, if somebody buys that place, they're probably gonna have to tear it down and start over. I remember the first time I was looking at homes, and this was, a while back before I even moved to this state, but I remember I went to one home, and it had been, quote, cleaned out. Okay, it had been cleaned out, and talk about like a super fun site. I mean, it just, you walked in and it hit you like a sledgehammer. The stench of animal waste, and I could tell it was dogs and cats, because they had a house full of pets. They didn't have litter boxes, or they never cleaned them. They never walked the dogs, so the animals just pissed and shit all over the house. It was just like holy shit! It was just awful. I mean, it made my eyes water. I'm like, I
Those are
told the
just
realtor, I said,
caked
you know
on the
what?
wall.
Well, I mean, it had been cleaned out. I mean, you didn't see any of it, but the stench had just soaked into everything.
It lingers all
It,
the
it
time.
lingered, yeah. I mean, well, it soaked into, because it had gotten into, the woodwork and
Floorboards,
the
yeah.
drywall and everything else, and it just, like, soaked into everything. And it's true, like, the urine and stuff, they pee on the floor, it'll soak right in, it'll get into. I mean, you'd probably have to strip the whole place down to the studs to get rid of the stench. But I told the realtor, I was like, I'll pass. No thanks.
Yes, you should. Yeah.
But that goes back to the property value thing, because they're, devaluing, the property. I mean, who would want to buy that place? Well, except, maybe another dog nutter, perhaps, but no sane person. It's definitely, they limit the market. Yeah, why do we put up with
Nasty way to live.
why do we have to put up with this stuff in a modern society? This is not the Middle Ages. And even in the Middle Ages, they were probably better about this stuff. At least back when people had yards full of goats and sheep and so forth, and pigs, at least those are useful. The dogs aren't.
Right. Ship. Yeah, right. I see a lot of dog owners just getting, even my sister's a huge dog nut. She has like 3 of them, I think. And whenever I go over there, You know, I mean, like IHD says, don't go to people's houses that have dogs, but you know, she's my sister, right? So, and all she does is yell at them.
That's, that's interesting. It's, yeah, people they don't even really like the dogs that much, or it takes constant correction to get them to behave or quasi behave, which goes against the notion or demolishes the notion that dogs are smart. You'd think they would get the point after a while. One thing I never got into, I mean, it's probably, fodder for a whole another segment, but I mean, I don't talk about myself that much, man, because I'm not that interesting. I'm all about ideas and information and policy and things like that.
They're so short. They're cool.
Yeah, it's like, but when I was a kid growing up, when I was a little kid, we had a couple of dogs. We had a boxer who bit me when I was 4. Not a bad bite. My arm is still attached, fortunately, but my parents, boom, gone, deleted. Took her to the vet and had her put down. This was back in the 70s. I was 4 at the time. So then we didn't have a dog for a while. Then we got this little mop dog that got deleted by a car. And then we didn't have a dog for a while. And then, my parents got divorced. Because really, nobody in my family was a dog person. They're still not. But my parents got divorced. Both got remarried when I was in middle school. And my stepdad, my mom's second husband, was a dog person. And he had a Gordon Setter and a yellow lab. Not dangerous dogs. That wasn't an issue. And he was, I guess, by today's standards, he'd be considered a good dog person. But when you said what you said about your sister, it kind of brought that back, because he was just constantly correcting them. I mean, he believed that, dogs should behave. If you have, dogs in the home, they need to behave. They need to, sit when told, don't jump up on people, don't beg for food at the table, etc., etc., etc. So all these meals, family dinners, I mean, going into when I was into my 20s, right? So picture, that we'd be eating dinner, the dogs would kind of slink in and start to beg for food, and he'd be like, go away, go. And he'd point, and they'd sort of slink away. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, they'd come back and start begging again. He'd yell at me, go away, go, and then that would happen. They'd slink off. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, they'd come back. And it like never occurred to them that maybe begging at the table wasn't a good idea. The same thing with jumping up. If somebody came into the house, they'd both run up and start to jump up, and he'd yell, down. And they would listen to him. They would drop, boom, they would hit the floor. Yeah. But every time it was the same thing. Every time somebody came over, they would jump up, he'd yell at them, they drop. But then the next person to come to the door was the same thing. It's like they never got it. So it was just this constant correcting the behavior for however long, 14
for brains.
Well, that's just it. It's like they talk about, well, dogs are so smart. And yeah, I mean, you can try. I mean, he had him voice trained to some extent, but there was no intelligence there. They never really got it. They never thought, okay, maybe jumping up is not a good idea. No, I mean, if he
Seemed
told
like he
him,
was the alpha, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was.
A minute.
If he told him down, they boom down. But if somebody else came to the door 30 seconds later, they would jump up on that person.
Like flies, you swat a fly away, it'll come right back at you. It's like a mosquito,
Hey, wait, that's insulting to flies and mosquitoes.
Flies eat dog shit. I have no respect for flies either. Ban all flies, goddammit.
Yeah, BAF or BAM, ban all mosquitoes.
Yeah, bam.
So what actually motivate. So how long have you been in the space? You've been producing YouTube content for a couple years, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. I had the same name before that. I think there's only, I can't really remember a few videos, but I deleted it, but then I restarted it up again.
Okay.
It was pretty much the same exact thing it is now.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know why I deleted it. I think I was just I feel like I was wasting energy on doing it, but as soon as I deleted it, I was like, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Instant regret
If it
doing
makes
it.
you
So.
feel better, well, I've never really like actually deleted anything, but with the blogging, I dropped out of the space for 5 years. I maybe lurked a little, but I didn't do anything because I started blogging, 11 years ago, and I was really active with that for about 5 or 6 years. And I just said, yeah, I'm just sick of this. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, you try to ignore it as much as you can, but it's
Yeah.
always there in your
But it's
face every time you turn the
always
TV on, every time you go outside, you're always constantly reminded of it.
Yeah.
Like once you go anti-dog, you just you can't go back.
Well, you see it, yeah, because it's and the problems just keep coming up. They just keep coming up. I mean, and even though, like, let's say those two, the idiots next door to you moved away, you might think, oh, woohoo, it's better. And maybe that person, I don't know, probably what they would do is just like burn everything to the ground and salt the earth. But then somebody else is going to come in and do the same thing. Right? Because there's just too many of these people. It's not.
That reminds me, before they moved in, there was a single mom with a child, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 or whatever. And there's a school right up the street. And the child would always cut through my yard to get home, because there was no fence at the time. And I'm like, why is this kid? I almost was like, get off my lawn, like a grumpy old guy.
Yeah.
And imagine I get frustrated about that, because he walked in the same path, and I can't believe I'd even get frustrated about that. So I feel like I'm getting punished now because
well, yeah, because
the people that moved in next were huge dog. I'd much rather have it the way it was before.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like you learn that all this other stuff like almost doesn't, because it pales in comparison. There's nothing like the horror brought into your life by a mutt nutter. They're the worst. They really are.
People saying we are the worst because we think that's the worst. It makes no sense to me too. It's like, sorry, I want to live in cleanliness and have people be as safe as they can be.
Yeah.
And imagine calling us the bad guys.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Not listen to Fido like serenade the neighborhood all the time. Well, it's interesting because their standard is that if you don't love every dog unconditionally, you're the spawn of Satan. But which is again, they make it very much a binary thing. It's a fallacy of the disappearing middle. It's like, maybe I don't hate them being either the dogs or the owners, but I just want them to just let me live my life. Just respect my rights, but they won't do it. They won't do it. So.
Yeah, it's one thing, like if someone has this like souped up Charger, 1970 Charger next door, revs their engine, or someone drives by with a sound system, with the bass bumping, that lasts for what, 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Then they're off, but dogs, it's just constant, like car alarms going off,
Yeah. Well, that's a thing with the barking, it's what Kidder and I talk about quite a bit, but the worst thing about the barking is you're always on edge because you don't know when it's going to start or how long it's going to last when it does. So you're always on edge. So you like you just said, if somebody drives by with a boom car, well, you know it's going to be gone in 10 seconds. Right? They're not just going to park in front of your house for the next 4 hours. Or, you know, if they did, you could call the cops on them. Right? So you know that's going to pass. But, you know, with a dog, it's like you don't know. I mean, they're converting dog food into noise, which...
That's a torture, just not knowing when it's going to come.
Yep.
I mean, that's the intention part of torture.
That's
you get
like
that jolt in your body, like, oh. And another thing, when they like bark crazy like that, especially the neighbors, you know, so you have to get up and look out the window, like, okay, what are they barking at? Maybe someone's creeping along my yard or someone's yard.
That's the thing.
You know, so it's a false sense of security kind of thing.
That's the thing. So, it's like, you know, it is an alarm. I mean, and the sound of, I mean, and dogs have been bred to be this way. I mean, that's what it is. It's a biological proximity alarm. So the sound itself, you know, stimulates a fight or flight response. But you're right. You want to hear the dog barking. It's like, what is it? You know, and even though part of you...
to see what they're freaking out about.
Yeah, at an intellectual level, you know, it's probably barking at nothing. But still, it's like, but again, it's at a more primal level, at a more physical level, you know, you know, and again, you get a jolt of adrenaline, your blood pressure goes up, and you can't help it. You know, it's a sort of a somatic response. And that's why dog barking is so toxic. It's really bad for your body.
And dog owners that have been used to it.
About dogs on the internet, they're the one responsible owner. You know, that's, you just, you know, we try to discuss it on the internet, and, you know, we say, hey, we don't like dogs because of this. And they're like, well, it's okay that you don't like dogs, but don't talk about it. And I always do the right thing. And, you know, just try to shut you down.
Yeah. Well, right. They're always the one responsible dog owner. Oh, we don't do that. And maybe they don't, you know, but a lot of it too is, why don't, and you see, you know, there's many dog people who at least claim to, you know, oppose some of the worst aspects of dogs in society, like fighting dog proliferation, dog noise pollution, service dog fraud, right? And they claim, but it's like, okay, why aren't you doing something about it? Why aren't you appealing to fellow dog owners to up their game? But that's what it is they're just concern trolling.
Or they know what the owners would do because they probably do. You know, they just overreact about it.
Yeah.
You know, just go on the offensive.
Flip out and try to kill you. You know, go all like Texas Chainsaw Massacre on them.
Well, these dog owners are in competition with each other. You know, I mean, 90% of people around here have dogs, right? So it's like getting the newest car, you know, having the cleanest car, you know, they use that, but substitute it with dogs. You know, I have more dogs than you. My dogs are more well-behaved than yours. My dogs are better than yours, you know. All this crap.
It seems like a lot of it, you're right. It's kind of an arms race, but the arms race is who loves Fido the most. And that's where it gets into. Somebody says, well, I love, like, they love the dog more than their kids or their spouse. And you know, people like us think, oh, that's terrible. But to them, they're like, okay, who's this virtue signaling contest they're having? Well, I guess you must be the best dog owner because you just love Fido the most. You love him more than your spouse and your kids and your parents and your siblings. You know, you just hate everything except dogs that you idolize endlessly. It's like, yay, you know, you get the gold medal. Hey, looks like we have another, hold on, we have another visitor. Looks like Alien Drone Services has dropped in. You there, bud? Looks like you're muted.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Your
Hey,
own service.
since you joined, I know, I mean, we've communicated, you commented on many of my videos. Since you're here, I'm basically just
Yeah.
grilling everybody. I know Jones has been grilled and B.A.D has been grilled. So just, I mean, I'm just, curious, like, tell us a little about yourself and why you're interested in this space.
I'm not sure. Sometimes I come upon interesting topics and then I just kind of dive into it, and there's going to be like a community there.
Okay.
So I dove into this, I think, like maybe a year ago. The funny thing was, I do real estate photography, and right before I dove into this, I hadn't really thought about it. It's just I shoot houses, and sometimes it's annoying that there are dogs, or there were dogs there. This one particular house I shot, it was really nasty. The dogs weren't even there, but you could tell they must have been really big dogs, because the people I guess they were the owners. They had these like giant, you know, everything was giant. So it's like the giant dog food thing. They had like a giant dog food dispenser, I think, or something.
Okay.
And man, the house was just reeked of dog. That
We
was one
were
of the worst ones.
just,
But
we
then
were
a few
just,
days later, I discovered IHD, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, there's a community here of people who criticize dogs. Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
we were just talking
Good.
about that, like how dogs can, and maybe, other pets too, even cats, if they're not cared for properly, can just destroy the inside of a house, particularly with the body waste, urinating and defecating all over the home, and how difficult it is to get that, stench out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was physically ill after shooting that house.
Wow.
But yeah, that's the thing is you're selling a house. You want it to smell as nice as possible, but you like messed up the smell with the dogs.
Yeah.
So take 50,000 off the price of the house. Is
Yeah.
that really worth it? Come on, man.
Yeah, I guess maybe it is. Maybe they could sell it to another, dog worshiper. We were talking earlier because, B.A.D's next door neighbor is kind of like that. They've essentially just ruined the property, really. I mean, the yard is just a piss and shit soaked mud puddle. The stench is permeating the whole neighborhood, and I'm sure the inside of the house is wrecked. I was telling the other folks earlier, a long time ago, back when I think the first time I was looking at homes, I remember going into this one home, and it had been, quote, cleaned out. Right, there was nothing inside. All the furniture was out. Supposedly had been cleaned, but my eyes watered. It just reeked, and it was basically pet waste, probably mostly dog, but I think there was some cats in there too. And the reek had just permeated everything. So I told the realtor, it's like, "Nah, I'll pass. Don't need to look
Yeah,
at this any further." I think I got probably maybe 5 feet inside, and I was, nah, pass.
yeah.
Just
What they really need to
the
what they
peppers.
need to do really is hire like a Winston Wolf. You guys saw Pulp Fiction, right? Well, a bunch
Yeah,
of cleaning companies who really, really, really deep clean were inspired by Pulp Fiction, and those guys really do the job.
yeah.
They'll get all the smells out, but they charge a lot for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's soaked into, like, for example, if the dogs have been peeing on the floor, I mean, it's gone to the carpet and the padding and probably, into the flooring even. I mean, it's like soaked into the wood.
It just makes more sense to replace it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe it's like even
It's the whole thing.
tear up the flooring.
It,
Um,
it's an uphill battle trying to get, clean past a certain point. I mean, you might clean clothes from it, but it's soaked into an entire board, it'll outgas.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, alien drone guy. So you had these experiences and you said, yeah, I want to find out, is there, so you sort of got the clue that like maybe some of these dog people aren't quite right in the head.
Yeah, and I think I could say that, like a lot of the anti-dog people now, I was kind of a dog person too, sort of. I've never owned a dog personally, but I grew up with a couple of small dogs, and they were okay. I think what benefited my experience was that our original dog Goldie was she was one of those very small type of poodles, and apparently poodles are very, very smart dogs. So I think that helped that she wasn't quite as stupid as your normal dog. But she got out one day and mated with another dog, and her daughter was very stupid. It was interesting seeing the contrast between her super smart, for a dog, and then her daughter's super stupid. So yeah, her daughter was a more annoying dog just for her stupidity. But
What was she crossed with? Do you know?
we don't know because we didn't even know she was pregnant. She just had a pup one day, and that was another interesting thing is she only had one pup. That was lucky.
That's
Can you imagine a whole
weird.
litter? That would have been horrible.
That's pretty odd. Yeah, that's very strange. I would have thought there would have been at least 3. So it's interesting. Yeah, you got into because like most people in this space have a very personal narrative.
Oh well, yeah. I was bit by a German Shepherd when I was maybe 5 years old, something like that. I'd kids do stupid stuff. I rode my big wheel down the block, and I don't remember exactly what age I was, 5, 6, something like that. But I rode it down to the end of the block, which is really dumb because there was a German Shepherd that was off leash on a property at the end of the block, and he just came up and ripped my ear off, or he bit my ear, and I had to get stitches. So I don't know exactly what the damage was because it was long, long, long ago.
Yeah.
But I remember I had to get stitches on my ear, and then the dog was taken away somewhere. I would assume must have been euthanized.
What do they do? Yeah. Yeah.
But I always thought since then, I long thought that German Shepherd was the most dangerous dog in the world.
It's the first one to go after you almost.
Yeah. And it seemed like whenever I saw other German Shepherds, they just seemed incredibly dangerous.
Well, that's why they're used in, protection work. There was actually just today, well, it's reported today, I think it happened yesterday, was there was in California, a construction worker was deleted by, they weren't German Shepherds, they're Belgian, and I don't know how to pronounce this. I know I'm probably going to get flamed.
Malinois?
Malinois or Malinois, yeah. But which is sort of, it's like a German Shepherd knockoff. It's like the difference between a pit bull and a XL bully or whatever. But yeah, a man was working on, it was a business. He entered the property with permission, and he was deleted by 3 of those mutts and also a Corso. But yeah, those dogs are pretty nasty. And I don't know what age bracket you're in, but when I was a kid, a small kid, like that age bracket, in the 70s, everybody was worried about, interesting, everybody was worried about German Shepherds and Dobermans. I even remember when I was a little kid, in that age bracket, my grandmother telling me, she's like, you stay away from German Shepherds and Dobermans. If one of your friends has them, just don't go to their home because they'll just snap and go after you, And of course, now today I'm thinking, yeah, I finally realized that my grandma was just a stone cold racist, with all that, breed discrimination. But interestingly, though, back then, like in the 70s, one of the, if not the most dangerous breed of dog, probably the top 3 were St. Bernards. I was trying to get some info on dog bite related fatalities from that time period, like the mid 70s. And at one point I stumbled over something where I think it was in 74. There was 5 or 6 dog bite related fatalities, and more than half of them were St. Bernards. And interestingly, 0 pit bulls. And I think maybe the others were one of these other nasty ass mutts like German Shepherds or whatever. But it was interesting. And I also remember one year I was up at my uncle's place in Vermont, and this is about the same time frame. And there's this restaurant they like to hang out at. It had this Swiss chalet motif. So, and I knew the owner had a Saint Bernard, not in the restaurant because it was never allowed back then, but it like tied up in the back. And I wanted to see the dog, and my uncle was like, "No, no, bud, don't do it. Don't go back there." Because what had happened was, I don't know if it was in their town, but it was nearby. A Saint Bernard, not that dog, but a Saint Bernard had scalped a kid. Literally torn the kid's scalp off. But, yeah, interesting you bring that up because, yeah, once upon a time, yeah, it was these other, nasty ass dogs that everybody was concerned about. But then, in the 90s, the pit bulls came along, and now they're all just these, all these St. Bernards and Dobermans and German Shepherds and Belgian, whatever they are. Yeah, they're just a bunch of, they're all just fur angels sent from heaven, right? No. So, yeah, you got a narrative. Everybody's got a narrative, even if you don't maybe fully realize it. Because a lot of it, that's what a lot of these sort of like anti-dog people don't realize is that, or they don't respect, is that, everybody's been conditioned to love dogs. We were talking about that earlier before you joined, Hollywood propaganda and so forth.
It gets recommended to me as a hobby, like more than any of the other hobbies do.
Right. Well, because, yeah, that's the most productive use of your time, right? You've got nothing better to do. None of us do.
Like you say, people treat it as Jesus. So you're
Yeah.
doing good by adopting a dog that was abandoned by someone else. But hey, you can adopt it and treat it right, and then that's your way of paying indulgence, and then you get into heaven.
Right. It's how you pay penance, right? We're all sinners. But you can, I'm losing, but it's a religion. So we can redeem ourselves. We can save our souls by rescuing a dog or dedicating our life to dogs somehow. But like I was saying was that, everybody is conditioned almost from birth to just love dogs unconditionally. So to become a dog critic, typically, often more than one bad thing has to happen. It's not just a thing, but you have to either be subject to or witness to all kinds of bad outcomes involving dogs or dog owners too. And we've talked about that also. And then to sort of turn, so it's a process, but it's something that only happens because there's so many problems with dogs in society. But a lot of these sort of like sorry, go ahead.
It just keeps adding up. One thing might not turn you against dogs, but neglectful owners next door, your child being attacked, you being attacked. It just keeps going on and on, and other innocent people being attacked, other kids in the news, elderly people. It's never ending.
Yeah. Like the news stuff. People, watch I Hate Dogs or even, my material, but you don't have to. It's like, just walk down the street anywhere. Like the alien drone guy said, go ride your big wheel down the block. You're probably going to have a dog behave, maybe not actually injure you, but behave dangerously. because they're everywhere, and it's not cats or parakeets doing this. It's dogs, right? I can't walk a block without a dog behaving dangerously, right? Like, charging, pulling at the chain, jumping at the fence, right? And if they weren't, restrained, I probably would be injured, and it's,
Numerous houses. I walk down the street and there's dogs in windows just freaking out.
yeah,
It's like,
they're like,
what?
they're like, if
What
I
the
were
heck shit?
outside,
Like-
I'd get a chunk out of you, pal.
It's a threat.
But
Yeah, and it is getting worse. I was going to say, I think that was around 1975 when I was bit, but it's getting worse now.
Okay, so
There's
you
this
and
weird trend.
I are about the same age then.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
And it seems to be getting worse because there's this, there wasn't the dog rescue thing going on back then. I don't think it's
No,
it's
there
like
wasn't. Yeah,
huge
that's
thing now, dog rescue, and there's all these people rescuing these dogs that, if they were abandoned, it's probably because of behavior, right?
Yep.
So you're rescuing something that maybe it would be better for everyone, including the dog, if it had just been euthanized.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that was
It's
the
pretty easy
thing
to make more
was
dogs.
because, yeah, like 70s, 80s, that was if a dog, because I guess this was before you joined, I shared something from my history because when I was a little kid, the same time frame. Our family had a boxer, which is kind of strange. I don't know why my parents had them because neither of my parents were dog people, neither of my birth parents anyway. But they'd had other problems with the dog, as boxers are kind of like a first cousin to a pit bull. But the dog bit me, and it wasn't a bad bite. Like I was telling the guys earlier, like my arm's still attached, but boom, gone. Took her to the vet, euthanized. Done. That's what you did. It was basically everything back then was, one strike and they were out.
my parents went the same thing.
Yeah. But over time, and I don't know when it changed, probably late 90s, early 2000s, I call it, the zeitgeist, the cultural climate shifted away from public safety and more towards, basically, protecting dogs. They're like, well, they love us unconditionally. They're man's best friend, and we need to protect them. We need to save them. We need to, look out for basically put their, dogs first. It became dogs first. We have to put their best interests, at least perceived, because even as you just said, it's like, yeah, keeping a nasty ass dog alive really doesn't do anybody any good, including the dog. But they think that that's somehow good for the animal to keep it alive as long as possible rather than put it down. So, and that, that's the main reason we have the outcomes we have. A lot of these, particularly dog people who hate pit bulls, are like, ban pit bulls, ban them. But they're like, oh yeah, if my, German Shepherd like tears up a kid in a big wheel, it's like, it's just an accident. It's like, no, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Fucking tragic accident happened.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it couldn't have been prevented, But the problem with that is, I'm digressing some, is that it's awfully confusing to people to say on one hand that like dog attacks are normal, they're normalized, right? So Fido attacking random people, it's either it's their fault or it's just an accident that couldn't have been prevented. So, and that's what we've been conditioned to believe also. But then this pit bull problem explodes everywhere. And it explodes everywhere, I believe, because of that. Because that attitude created the perfect climate for this pit bull, quote, issue. Now they're like, well, let's ban pit bulls. But I say, and I'm being snarky, I'm being very cynical. It's like, why? Dogs attacking people is never a problem before. Why is it now? I mean, either it's like shooting somebody. I mean, depending on the circumstances, I guess. But is like shooting random people a good thing or not? it doesn't really depend on who the manufacturer of the gun is. And this is the same thing. It's sort of like, is it Fido attacking somebody something we want or not? And they say, well, I guess it depends on what breed of dog it is. It's like, no, it doesn't, something we want. But going back to what I was saying, it's like, yeah, that's why I ask people. I'm always curious, like, what brought you to the space? And I guess, it's a handful of people who maybe are into it in the abstract, because they think, okay, from a sociological perspective, like, who are these maniacs who don't worship Fido day and night? Like, what's their gig, so they get involved. But yeah, everybody has probably multiple personal narratives that got them to where we are. So
it's not an easy way to go either. I mean, I knew, like, I had all kinds of friends with dogs, so if I don't like dogs, almost it hurts them in a way, like, because I speak against them on Facebook, and now they almost feel like I attacked them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they do. They take that very personally. But I think that's part of the evolution, or I can't really think of the words. There's so many. There's definitely a whole bunch of postdoctoral work or postgraduate work to be done in this space in terms of psychology, sociology, political science, and so forth. But many dog people, I think, see their dog as part of themselves. It's almost like they merge into this dog man or man dog. So if you tell somebody, or even dogs in the abstract, to say, you know what, I'm fed up with these barky dogs. It's like, to them, it's almost like you're telling them, well, you're ugly, or you're stupid, or something. I don't know. I haven't quite got my head around that part of it yet. But they definitely take it, particularly if you complain about their dog, they take it very, very personally. And my point is, look, it's not personal. I'm just saying, look, don't noise pollute me, bro. That's all I'm asking for. Just don't do it. Okay? Or don't, I don't want your dog to bite me. That's not a big, it's not personal, but they act like you're attacking them somehow when you try to set some boundaries. So
yeah, to me, there were a lot of situations I had to just put up with. If I go to someone's house, their dogs bark at me for a couple minutes, and then they don't do anything else. I wouldn't complain. It took a lot more than that to get me complaining.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to go after them and what they have going on. It's like, hey, it can get a lot worse than that, than what happens there. And, we should take that seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, is you're right. Because because of the conditioning, the situation has to get pretty bad for somebody to actually do something. Because one of the complaints they make about people like us is that we're complaining about nothing. All you heard was a couple of yaps. No, it was like 8 hours worth.
Or, it's like the house situation, because you guys might have seen the after effects, but I've experienced the during effects, about I want to say probably about a month of my life, if you sum it up. Yeah, I was in cut an average house in like a quarter, and 8 dogs are occupying that space.
Ugh.
Someone sort of built a makeshift room in her parents' garage. I guess it doesn't reflect on me that, this is people I'm hanging out with, but I'm basically, there's 3 people, and it's not even, I don't think it's even 200 square feet. And, 8 dogs and you're just
Ugh.
hanging out, or smoking pot. And that's the only way you could really deal with it,
Yeah.
and tolerate it.
Yes, yeah. You actually probably
Yeah.
need something harder than that. It's funny you bring that up. My ex nutter or my nutter ex neighbors, because people wonder like how could they put up with it, like what's going on there. But the thing was, they drank a lot. Now, how do I know? Well, now the county gives us these recycling barrels, but at the time, everybody put out bins. So like these 10-gallon bins that you'd put your aluminum and glass and so forth in. And every week they would put out about 4 of these bins, and they were just overflowing with beer and cans and wine bottles. And the wine bottles were, the bottom shelf stuff, like the Gallo wine. They literally sell at the bottom shelf at the grocery store. The whole thing, and they didn't have like parties or anything. It was, well, it was the 2 of them, and one of them had, I think, a non-custodial kid because there was a young boy there, like on and off. But every week they would put this stuff out, and I'm thinking, yeah, no wonder, because they're passed out all the time. They don't hear the dog or know what he's doing because they're completely shit-faced, But the problem is, not everybody else is. Right?
Like too with the pot thing, like I was at a buddy's house, like during the summer, last summer, he had a big lab, chocolate lab, whatever you want to call it. And we'd be on the porch hanging out, drinking beers, right? Smoking a reefer. But he would bring the dog on the porch too, and anybody that would walk by, the dog would lunge and go after him. And my buddy would be like, "Oh, it's okay. He just wants to say hi and smell you." It's like, dude, don't you think that that people might be a little freaked out, and it's a little ridiculous that you're letting your dog do this,
Yeah, because
And I would say that to him, and he'd be like, "What? He's just saying hi. It's not going to hurt him." I'm like, "Oh, for sake."
yeah, well, but it could hurt somebody because a dog like that could, knock somebody over and they could have an injury. And some people, it's like, look, we have a right to body integrity. I don't want your mutt all over me.
You can't just be laid back and have a dog. I mean, we say, it's controlling kinds of people that get dogs. And I prefer, if anyone's going to get it, it's one of them. Because, guy who just lets the dog do whatever and just, acts like one of those permissive parents, it's the worst.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's no boundaries set. At least like, with my stepdad, I mean, he had them voice trained, but the thing is they were trained, but there's no intelligence there. Like, if they started jumping up, he'd yell down and they would drop. But yet 30 seconds later, if somebody else came over, they just jump on that person. Then he'd yell at them and on and on. And they just never got it. At least in his case.
Loud noises.
Yeah, at least in his case, it's like he tried. Yeah, because a lot of these the current crop of dog people, they don't even bother. They're like, if Fido wants to jump up, just let him. It's like, yeah,
saying hi.
Yeah, I like those excrement like crusted paws all over me. Yeah, that's just what I wanted. After putting clean clothes on, but
Loves dogs.
Yeah.
Nope. Sorry, we're out here.
Hey, I had a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. Too, is again, I wanted to welcome the new members. Oh, Kidder's here. We got 5 on now. What's up, Kidder?
What's up?
Yeah. Well, it's good to see. Just real quick, how your neighbors behaving? Any death threats recently, or we good there?
Nope, I think we're all good.
Good. Yeah.
Pretty decent.
Yeah. So, and the dog noise is being projected in the other direction now.
Yeah, I believe that's what's happening. I was out back working on something and it was barking sporadically. So,
Yeah.
I don't think they've changed. They're simply just not bothering me, which is fine, I guess.
Well, it's what you wanted, so I guess it's you could chalk it up to a win. So I mean, the best thing is like all these people being burned at the stake. That's a solution. I mean, the real solution, rather than
Yep.
moving on to, otherwise we wind up in like a circle jerk of asshole dog owners because they they start harassing somebody else, or they go someplace else and do the same thing, and then but other dog people get driven out of where they are and they come back to your neighborhood. So it's like this endless loop of dog nuttery kind of circulating our neighborhoods. Well,
I'd love to see it.
that's good. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to actually give a shout out to a couple of YouTube users, and I know commenters. I think Chef had reached out to them. One of them was Xylitol Express. Now, first, I'd like to say that person gets the gold medal for the best YouTube handle ever. So yeah,
I'm condoning poisoning dogs, by the way.
well, it's funny because the graphic is a train. It's a Xylitol Express. Note that it's kind of abstract. Like they're not explicitly promoting the special treats. But anyway, I thought that was really funny. So if that person wants to join the club, they're welcome to do so. They can reach out to Chef or I for an invite. The other person I'd be interested in communicating with is Emma. I think her handle is Emma S. And she, according to what she says, was a dog trainer who, and talk about personal narratives, I guess got fed up with it and flipped. But somebody like that because it's sort of like an ex-insider because, dog trainers are at or near the core of the dog cult. So, talking to somebody like that, or the narrative from somebody like that, is really important. In my old blog, I had a dog trainer, an ex-dog trainer, current hater. I mean, hated him with a passion. And she was always interesting to talk to, also because she gave a lot of insight into dog training techniques and things like that. And she was the one who really clued me into, what a scam this whole service dog thing is, because particularly service pit bulls and the like, she says even breeds that are the most suited for the activity, for that type of vocation, something like 70% wash out, and that's after $10,000 plus of trainings. Anyway, Emma, if you're listening or somebody knows her, look me up. Be glad to have you join. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and it actually segues from what the alien drone guy and I were just discussing about, dangerous dogs being put down. On my community page, I posted a video about what was this about? Where is that? Is it, dangerous dogs in San Antonio returned to owner and still terrorize my family. So this woman put up a video. She has a bunch of nasty ass dogs living next door. They've, invaded her property. She's been attacked by these dogs on her property. They mauled her car. Our kids can't play in the yard. They're basically living in fear. And she's going through this. This video is really interesting, but part of what's expressed is how difficult it is to get something done about something like this. She even went into the fact that it appears that the San Antonio Animal Control is not even following their own protocols. In other words, these dogs should have been impounded probably long ago. But, again, animal control, that's what I call it. So I call myself animal uncontrol, is doing everything they can to avoid doing their jobs. She goes into how difficult it is even to report it. For example, when she was attacked in her own yard, dog bit her, and she had, showed photos of the wound. It wasn't a tearing wound. It was this enormous bruise. It looked like, imagine somebody hit you in your leg with a baseball bat as hard as they could. It was pretty nasty. But of course, they played it down. They're like, it's no big deal, right? That's what they always do. They always minimize the bad outcome as much as possible. But they said, after that happened, they said, okay, you'd think you would report something like that and be like, okay, we'll send somebody over to check it out. We'll take your statement, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe, do you need a paramedic or whatever? No, all they say is, oh, you say that happened? Well, you have to come to us, come to our office and, swear out an affidavit and have it notarized, right? I mean, it's totally passive aggressive. But the thoughts I had was, why haven't they impounded the dogs? Like, why? Well, no, first of all, why is the whole system sort of geared towards protecting the dog? Why aren't they impounding these dogs? Particularly, they're clearly dangerous. They're running at large. There've been a ton of complaints. They've injured somebody. The owner clearly can't control them. Yet the dogs are still running loose. Why? Why is this allowed to continue? Even though the actual protocols dictate that they should have been taken out of circulation already. Like, why is
Trying to
that?
add dogs into the human population,
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean,
8 billion people on the planet, plus let's include dogs and add that number to it.
Well, but I'm thinking
Humanizing these things.
Yeah, well,
And-
actually, no human would be allowed to get away with that.
Right.
I mean, if somebody did
more than human, they're
more
better
than
than
human.
humans.
Well,
now,
yeah, they're
apparently.
they're the furry Jesus. But what's interesting is that I've been doing some due diligence on dog shelter quote metrics. In other words, how do we measure the performance? Proverbial we, not necessarily us personally. How do we measure the performance of a dog shelter or a city dog pound or whatever? What are the, or an AC agency? How do we measure their metrics, right? And it seems that, at least, in the shelter community, that the metric is to, again, to save or spare as many dogs as possible. So they want to keep that euthanasia rate. I mean, they want no kill, but even if the policy isn't no kill explicitly, they want to keep the number of dogs euthanized as low as possible. Right? It's kind of like in manufacturing. You want to keep your defects per 1,000 widgets as low as possible. Right? So if last year you had 150 defects per 1,000 and the next year was 120, that's an improvement. So it seems that is how we meter or evaluate these types of organizations. It's not, you'd think, like in a sane society, it would be public health, public safety. Like, in other words, you'd want to get the number of dog bites as low as possible. You'd want to get the number of complaints as low as possible. You want to get the number of lawsuits against the city for negligence as low as possible. But these dog cultists don't see it that way. All they care about is sparing as much dog life as possible. So one of the reasons I believe that these kind of situations are allowed to go on and on is they can't even bring the dogs in because, like, pretty much every dog shelter, not just in this country, but the world, is just Oh, they're at 120% capacity. They're overflowing with nasty ass mutts that nobody wants. Typically pit bulls, but other breeds are represented also. So because they want to keep that euthanasia rate down, because nobody's going to adopt these dogs, or if they do, they're going to bring them back in a week, right? So they're just going to warehouse them indefinitely. But what that means is if you're in a situation like this Heather Ginsburg person who put up the video, they're not going to pound the dogs because there's no place to put them because of this no kill or this mentality. I mean, my attitude is like, okay, you don't have room for the dogs. Well, you know what? I don't know, draw straws. 3 dogs in the shelter need to get deleted. Because the priority needs to be public safety. But I think the thing is what needs to change is that the metric, they need different metrics. The metric needs to be, we want dog bites to go down. We want, the number of lawsuits against the city to go down. It reminds me a little of the Kalonda Ritchie incident last decade in Ohio. And long story short, I blogged about that and I vlogged about it also, was she was killed by her next door neighbor's pit bulls after complaining for months, right? And the dog should have been taken out of circulation, but all the animal control people cared about was their low euthanasia rate. Because if they'd impounded those dogs, they never would have gotten adopted out. At least not for any significant amount of time. They would have just boomeranged right back again. And so, yeah, they just basically, they ignored it until the dogs killed her. And I guess the bright light at the end of the tunnel was her estate sued the city and was awarded $3.5 million in damages because a court found that, animal control was grossly negligent in the case. So, yeah, metrics. How do we meter their performance?
Probably just start pulling straws for every dog in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, that's what you do. It's like, we'll just delete a few dogs at random. It's like, we can't find the dogs that did it. So we'll just, we'll just delete that dog over there.
Hunger Games Dog Edition.
Yeah. Fido games.
Actually proposed that in a comment section.
Oh, Hollywood wouldn't go for that. You have to fund it yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like it's so politically incorrect. Any kind of like anti-dog movie. Well, the thing is, it would be impossible to make because even if you got funding for it, it would require cooperation from the mutt matrix, right? Because you'd need dog trainers and dog actors and things like that. I don't think you could do it.
Well, even movies where the dog dies or not even showing the dog getting killed, they don't like that either.
Yeah.
Well, then
Why do you
somebody
think-
posts about it. Whether the dog gets killed in a movie. I've seen like 5 of those posts already.
Well, even
you know,
then,
the-
it's presented as a tragic death typically. Like Old Yeller or whatever. Everybody cries.
Yeah.
But in Polar, he got a dog, and not even a minute later, he shot it, and it wasn't even on screen. And people crucified it and compared it to John Wick because John Wick was a huge dog nutter.
What movie
Literally
was that?
had a pit bull the whole movie.
What movie was that? Say the one that shot the dog. What movie was that?
Polar.
Polar. Huh.
is a hitman and whatever, and he had a bad dream and shot the dog he just brought home
Oh, jeez.
within a minute. 1 minute of screen time. He was walking down the city street, brought it home, went to bed, shot it. It's just, I had to watch that like 3 times over. I literally collapsed. It's fantastic.
But it's never the only exception I can think of. And that comes to mind because earlier we were talking about, murder mutts of yore. Like before pit bulls exploded everywhere, it was Dobermans, German Shepherds, and St. Bernards. And I guess you don't see St. Bernards too often. I guess they're really popular, I guess, back then, like pre-1990.
Beethoven really projected them.
Yeah, but I remember Cujo.
Snoop Dogg made Dobermans really popular.
Yeah, but I guess like St. Bernards are popular back to the Peter Pan animated feature from Disney. I think it came out, it was like maybe 50s or early 60s, I forget. But that made, because the Nana, the nanny dog from Peter Pan was, well, it looked like a Saint Bernard anyway. I think in the book it was something else, but in the feature it was a Saint Bernard. But Saint Bernards were, can be pretty nasty ass mutts too. But in the late, I guess it was around 1980, Stephen King wrote Cujo, which was also made into a movie. And
made it on bats.
Yeah, but that was, it's presented, that was a kind of movie where, and there's a spoiler, so everybody shut down for a couple of minutes, but, at the end of the movie, because what happened was essentially the dog trapped a mom and her kid in a car for days. And of course, at the end, the mom kills the dog. And you're like, yeah, the dog. But I guess it was sort of presented as tragic because Cujo wasn't a bad dog. You're right. He got bit on the nose by a bat and got turned rabid because
old boy in the beginning.
Yeah, because he was an irresponsible owner. The owner. I don't know if they got into that in the movie too much. I read the book and saw the movie. But in the book, they made it, he made it clear that the dog had never been vetted at all. So, including rabies shots. So he turned rabid, and again, more spoilers. Kills the owner, kills a neighbor, almost kills a mom and a kid, But
and you remember Homeward Bound too, right? They had to move to the city, so they had to dump their dogs off to their fucking aunt or something like that in the country. Remember that?
I don't know if I ever saw that.
Oh, don't.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. It's like dog, or even
they had to travel across the country or whatever to get back to the owners. It's like that would never happen.
Yeah, no.
This is pure fairy tale crap.
Yeah, no, I that kind of stuff I don't find entertaining. But yeah, if you were to make, I mean, an anti-dog movie or TV show would be impossible to make. I mean, logistically, because you'd need cooperation from, segments of the mutt matrix, which you wouldn't get, I don't think. You could maybe do, an animated feature, perhaps, but
did anyone see that Megan movie?
No.
What happened there?
I mean, the death was off screen, but the robot killed the dog, and it was the dog deserved it, and they showed the dog, was just aggressive, and so I mean, there's hope. I'll vote with my dollars there. I went and watched it just for that.
Made my day. There was I actually on the old Discord I posted some movie clips of it was a Clint Eastwood Western from the 70s. And I guess back in the 70s, people, weren't completely dog crazed yet. And it was Outlaw Josie Wales. Actually, it's a pretty good movie if you like westerns. But he sort of joins, and he's like this band of people, and this dog is kind of tagging along. But again, more spoilers, but he makes it clear he does not like the dog. And he's chewing tobacco most of the time, and he keeps spitting like tobacco juice in the dog's head.
Can I talk something about that shifting of what people think about things?
Sure. Yeah, the evolution of the dog cult is always a fascinating topic. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have something to say about that in strategy. You mentioned zeitgeist, but another term they use is Overton window. Have you guys heard of that?
Oh, yeah. I've written about that too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I know something about the environmental movement and how that came about to where it is today. Back in the 80s, you had the Sierra Club, you had Earth Island Institute, and you had Earth First. And from, people on the outside might have thought, oh, these guys are working at odds to each other because Sierra Club is milquetoast and Earth First is incredibly radical. And then you've got Earth Island Institute in between, and they're all doing their own thing and they must hate each other. But no, the reality was, and what they would admit privately is that they're working together really because, or, at least they're working in each other's interests because you have to have the milquetoast guys, to make, and then you have to have the radical guys. The radical guys were helping the milquetoast people because it made them look, it made all the proposals for the Sierra Club look extremely timid and mild.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Well, I guess because you're right.
Yeah, so if you remove that Overton window, you really need to have dog critique coming from like like that. You've got the milquetoast, you've got the radicals, you've got the people in between, and separate groups that from the outside don't seem to be working together.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's enough of us, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah, because sort of I don't think of myself as milquetoast. I can actually be very extreme in some ways, but in my case, I'm not really like overtly anti-dog. The animals themselves don't really interest me that much. I'm more interested in the social, cultural, political, public policy aspects of this. So I don't know if it's really that so much. It's just that my ideology doesn't necessarily align perfectly with the I hate dogs people. But yeah, you're right. I mean, because the more moderate people, they sort of they help move the Overton window also, because there it's sort of like you talk about the window, right? Because the metaphor is, okay, you've got a spectrum of positions on some issue, right? Say it's dogs. So at one end you've got what's totally unthinkable, and at the other end you've got something that's totally accepted by everybody, right? So and then you have this window of ideas that's kind of within that, and it can sort of move back and forth. And it can actually sort of move the whole, I guess, perspective, if you will. But I mean, right now the window is pretty much centered over like everybody has to grovel at the feet of the furry Jesus. You know?
So following the environmentalist model, there would need to be a group right now that's a direct action group that would be like Earth First of the 80s, which was, they were pretty extreme, they were putting spikes in trees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which was.
Well, I think that's
so
the
there's
thing
going to have to be
is
a
like,
few people doing that, and then some people who are explicitly very mild and just want to introduce some legislation.
yeah, because
right?
you need, because the thing is like most of the people in this space are, well, the part of the thing is that anybody who even we were talking about this before you joined also, because we were talking about things like like the Xylitol Express, if you know what I'm talking about, is that,
Yeah,
you know, today
that's
something,
more towards the radical end.
yeah, right, but something
Yeah.
like that you can't talk about. You know, that's the thing is that, you know, and I even got in, you know, it's funny, the We Hate Dogs guy and I had a segment when I got back into the space about this time last year. And I talked about, because like when I first, because I went into earlier, maybe before you joined, I mean, I was out of the space for 5 years, but I got into it quite a while ago. I mean, this is maybe 2011. And at the time, you even though it's mild criticism of dogs or dog culture, boom, got you banned. Like you were just like, because I would go into a forum and say something like, okay, maybe dog ownership isn't for everybody. And I'd be like, that's evil. How could you say such a terrible thing? Boom, gone. Right. So I guess the Overton window, I guess, has shifted some because now you can say that without getting deleted, at least, you know, so that's good. But so maybe we're not even at the point where like anybody who's like really radical about this is just it's just totally unacceptable. Even we talk about sort of the anti dog people, you know, they talk about folks like us, even people like me, and they say, oh, you know, they're deranged, they're delusional. Oh wait, I'm not saying that right. I got to use the right accent. Let me
Yeah, you
repeat
better
that.
fix
I got to
that.
use the right accent. It's like, you Moans, you deranged, you delusional, you know, but they never really address anything we're saying, right? They
Well, they
don't.
said this bestiality word porn.
God, that stuff. Oh man. Well, talk about like pushing
It's
the
the old
Overton
word
window.
soup distraction.
That's a good point though, because they, like the dog cultists, they are, because they're starting to push this, because this came up, I don't know if you remember, it was like the last time I did one of these or the time before, you know, I brought up the bestiality stuff, and I was wondering, why are those people coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden? Because you've really never really heard much from them. But yeah, though, I guess those are, in a sense, they're kind of like the radical or a radical element of the dog cult, is, you know, pushing dogs as spouses, I guess. I mean, I don't know, but that's a good thought. You know, it's like if somebody wants to step up and say, yeah, let's just, you know, delete every mutt in existence, or even ban dogs everywhere. You know, that was not something you could talk about 10 years ago.
Did you see what Chef posted at 12:21? It says 12:21 p.m., but it's a map of legality of bestiality in the United States. It looks like Hawaii, it's legal. New Mexico, Wyoming, and then some of the territories: Guam, American Samoa.
It seems like she gets most of the people like sending her that stuff too.
Oh, I've got plenty. It was funny. I was just looking at, you know, my emails, my personal emails, and I was getting bombarded with that stuff. There was some, let me read you something. This is what I got emailed a while back. Now, where is my, okay. This is some, when did I go? February 28th. This was an email I got, a private email. And this person says, this is actually kind of funny. I don't really feel threatened by this. But it says, just letting you know, we are watching. A lot of us are. But the thing is, we don't have to do any work to find out what you all said wrong and how to terminate all of you. We are simply starting with IHD using AI technology. Ooh, I'm scared. What is this, Skynet or some shit? So anyway, we're simply starting with IHD using AI technology to take him down as documented. Have a pup-filled possum day. Good luck hiding now, or good luck hiding how you feel. and what you have said from AI.
Make us scared.
Right. So I guess it's data mining is what they're talking about.
Yeah, well,
They're looking for
I
keywords.
brought that up because I mean, most of these people, they're probably too dumb to log into email, but yeah, I mean, I figure there's, and it's probably being orchestrated by some dog cult outfit like Best Friends or HSUS or Bad Rap or one of those places. It's probably not that difficult to, download all these YouTube segments. Essentially you scrape all the comments and organize them into a database, run all the audio through some kind of, voice to text routine and catalog all that. Because we've raised this multiple times that they like to, like that IHD exposed kid. He and his pals have raised that joke that IHD made about, having a bobcat as a pet. And I'm thinking, and this was years ago. So how did they pick up on that? And I'm thinking that, yes, some of them are, they're scraping all this stuff and, cataloging and going through it. They're going through it, with a fine-tooth comb, trying to find a way to get them, to get us. And that's what I said too, is you got to kind of be careful of what you say. We're not in a free speech environment. So, what else did I say? Because I replied, when did this other thing? Oh, yeah. So I replied, I could share this. Let me see if I can share this screen. I don't know if I can stay on much longer. Let me see if I can share the screen. Let's see. What do I have up? Is it this? Is it that? Let me see. Go live. Yeah, here it is. Do I want to see if I can expand this? Can you folks see this?
It showed up as another box.
Yeah, you see like a little box here. How do I make this bigger? I'm not the biggest, I guess, in this area.
Oh, I put.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Angel Stunna, that's a real name.
Let me, so look at what the next, let me see if this still shows up here. Yeah, so they said, what was the next one? So I'm just snarking him. So I said, thanks for giving me the views. Have you subscribed yet? So then he says, of course. And the AI already gave me a lot of important info on the people around you. So all you guys are busted. You're all being doxxed. You're finished. Don't worry. It's fine. You all made public comments. What does this say? Oh, we will make sure the world knows what you all think.
Yeah, this guy thinks he's Chris Hansen.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
What is?
But
Yeah, if you
but
guys
this
have been
is like
following
the
this is
Scientology-
just well anyway. So I keep. Can you guys still see this? So I keep snarking him. So I say, cool. Tell me everyone's birthday. I need to set up reminders. So I'm asking him basically for like proof of life. So you say you know everything about me. Fine. Tell me when my birthday is. You say you got all this information on me. Tell me when my birthday is. You should know that, right? Just hasn't this AI figured all this shit out? So then Z says, you're really hopeful in thinking that all you have to fear is a birth date when what your friends have said is much worse than public information. Not even a threat, but an honest assessment. Nevertheless, it's not. See what he writes here? He says, nonetheless, it's not looking good for some of us. Meaning that it's not good for them, what they're doing. I thought, like, isn't he supposed to be threatening me? He said, yeah, this is really bad for us. I'm like, well, yeah.
Well, hope he's better with this AI stuff than he is at grammar.
Yeah. The AI, yeah, like the Terminator's gonna come for us. But I've been getting a ton of this stuff. And this is almost funny. He said I wrote, I don't find birthdays all that intimidating, though 40 was kind of rough.
Oh, thanks for the heads
You
up.
were just,
Yeah.
you were just perfect with the snark.
Yeah. Well, that's what it
You're the
is. And
snark
and
king.
there some of the other, but I've been getting a lot of, and I got a whole slew of people claiming to be pit bull attack victims. But they all said pretty much the same thing. Because what it was is I was trying to, invite people onto this Discord. And there's people, they're soliciting me. They're like, hey, could I get an invite? And they all claim to be pit bull attack victims, but they all have the same story. So I just ignored those people. And there was another one, talk about like zoophile stuff. One of them wrote a really cute little short story about how I met a stray dog while hiking and took the dog in, and the relationship turned to romance.
How could it not?
Inviting always
well, yeah, of
improves
course. It's like,
one.
but I'm thinking, what is that? I didn't respond to any of those. So this one guy, I snarked him, but the rest of them I didn't really bother with. So, anyway, so
This harassment sounds like standard Scientology tactics.
it's so interesting you should say that, because I've actually been doing some like research into Scientology, like cults. And yeah, you're right. That's a really good insight. It is the kind of thing they do.
And the thing is, Scientology is known for attracting and mind controlling narcissists.
Yeah,
It's like that's their thing, is they target narcissists. And it seems like the whole dog thing too is attracting all these narcissists.
yeah,
And then maybe that's part of why they start identifying with the dog or something. They can't tell the difference between them and the dog becomes part of them or something.
yeah. Oops, did I lose you guys? Still there?
Still here.
Okay.
I'm still here,
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think, and probably I'm going to have to close soon. My voice is starting to go, but one thing to think about is that the problem with dogs is, or dog culture really, is that it's sort of an attractive nuisance. Like, it draws people who are like that. They're narcissistic, sociopathic, like to control others and so forth, mainly because it's a power center, because dog people have been granted power by the state in a lot of cases, like service dog fraud. You could go adopt a pit bull, take him to Outback Steakhouse. What are they going to do about it? As long as you answer the two questions, you're good to go. So it attracts those kind of people. It's become a self-selecting population, particularly pit bulls, because you hear and a lot of it too is a lot of the anti-pit bull propaganda is actually counterproductive, because one of the unintended consequences, well, there's a couple of unintended consequences. Obviously, one is play the oppressed victim. But the other one is like you hear, and a lot of dog people do this, they carry on, oh yeah, they're devil dogs. They're the worst. They're owned by thugs and criminals. They're the most terrible creatures alive. Well, who does that appeal to? Who does that appeal to? People looking for thug cred.
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw when I saw this dude with a dog at the supermarket. You could tell he was just looking for thug cred, like you said. And
Yeah.
he's like showing the dog off to people.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know if it was, it was some kind of a dangerous looking breed. Maybe it was like a crossbreed with a pit bull and something else.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of
But-
murdered mutts out there. So,
And he's in the supermarket, of course, without any kind of a vest on the dog. But none of the employers are saying anything because they're afraid that, it might be a service dog and they're not allowed to say anything or something.
yeah.
I think.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, like, look, if that's a service dog, like I'm the Grand Ayatollah, because that's not how like a legit service dog or service dog handler would act. There's very few actually legit. Well, actually, really none of them are legit because there's no proofing system. It's just based on hearsay. The dog owner gets the last word on whether it's legit or not. But
Yeah, which is why the ADA needs to be repealed.
yeah.
Or one of the reasons. It covers a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, if you check out Penn and Teller's episode, their Showtime episode it's called handicap parking spaces, but it's all about all these ADA things that aren't really helping the handicapped. So it's not just the dog thing. The ADA is rotten through and through. It needs to be repealed.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of problems with it. I mean, the service dog provision is the worst because, I mean, for a lot of reasons, it enables dog people to take their stink beast, where really it's been banned for a long time. They essentially get to bypass a whole slew of laws. But there's actually, it's interesting you bring up the, disabled parking spaces. They need a tag for that. Like that's an actual permitted activity. If you want to park in one of those slots, you need, at least in my state and other states I've been to.
Yeah, and there's tons of fraud associated with that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you get fit, but the service dog people don't even need that. They don't need to prove they don't need to prove anything. And people have brought that up too. Like disabled people said, "Oh yeah, to get a tag, I had to go to motor vehicles and it's probably I'm sure people cheat with that too, but at least they have to jump through the minimal hoops to get the tag. But service dog people don't need to do anything. They don't need to prove anything to anybody. They just all they got to say are the magic words and they're in. And that's a big.
It's like someone just posted on your Discord for it's something like 999 fraud or cases for every one person who really needs a service dog.
Yeah, well, if they even need it at all, I mean, I'm not gonna. I'll concede that. Yeah, maybe some fraction of 1% of the time the dog is actually able to do something useful, but it's a very crude way to address the problem.
I need somebody to tell me who needs a dog in their life.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that, there's nobody's defined exactly. And it was, in my draft letter at the end, I said, we need to investigate and, make a decision on exactly who is protected by these laws. Right? Is it people with, ingrown pinky fingernails? Who exactly? They talk about, well, it's a medical alert dog. It's like, you need a dog to tell you to take your fucking pill.
They can have for anxiety too.
Yeah, well, that's
that's
the thing is like but anybody could use that as an excuse. It's like, hey, I got anxiety. What are you anxious about? Oh, dogs in public.
Well, this person wasn't anxious at all, but traveling and she brought her 2 dogs with her, said they were service animals. And basically every hotel we stop at, I've got to tell the front desk guy, these are service animals. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, they're going to ask for some kind of proof. Like, why would they?
Well, they can't. The law says explicitly they're not required to prove anything. No permits, no documentation, nothing.
Well, and I'm thinking, I don't, she's like, yeah, just tell them they can't ask. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to tell some guy, it's too confrontational for me. So I'm like, hey, any pets and, what's your policy on pets? And that's what's the South. I'd have to move along to like the fourth one before I found a pet friendly place. It was exhausting.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean,
you know,
the ADA made everybody pet friendly now, so
The
I mean, as long as
assholes
you're
will
as
get
long
their
as you're
way.
willing, as long as you're willing to lie about it. That's the only like qualification. So if you're honest and they say, "Well, is that a service dog?" You're like, "Well, not really." Well, then they can, GTFO you. But if you lie about it, you're good to go. I mean, we know that,
Yeah.
like, many dog people, they're not exactly like the most honest people around.
yeah, she could never tell me what those dogs did for her like anxiety. She just said it's hard to explain and yada yada. I mean,
Well, the thing is that, like, ESAs, because there's a distinction, actually, at least at the federal level, there's a legal distinction to be made between a service animal, which really means dog, and an ESA, which is an emotional support animal. Because a service dog, technically, is supposed to be an animal that's been trained to do something for the handler, like remind them to take medications, or a guide dog for the blind to make sure they don't walk into tables or whatever. Like it's actually been trained to do something. It's a service. It's been trained to perform a service. Whereas like an emotional support animal is just it's like a teddy bear basically. But those aren't protected by the law. So if somebody says, well, it's an emotional support animal or a comfort animal or whatever, that the proprietor can deny them, and probably should, because again, if it's a place that sells or serves food, the health codes restrict animals. But
well, they bark, they peed on things. I'd have banned them. This
yeah,
is leading up to what made me finally just turn the tide on, turn it on dogs. I was putting up with it up to this point.
tell you. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to close it out soon. Mainly my voice is shot. I think I'm going to drop off. I think anybody can open a VC if you want. But anyway, thanks for joining everybody. Thanks for first time talking, Alien Drone Guy. Great chatting with you. B.A.D,
Likewise.
B.A.D, thanks for coming. Hope you can talk to you soon, I hope. And Kidder and Jones, always great. Thanks for joining. So I think I'll end the call soon. So as usual, this is Animal Uncontrol, and as always, people first. Later, guys.
Yeah, later.
See ya.
All right, bye.
Good night.